I'm just making this video. I just wanted to let everybody know that they need to get out and vote. The election's tomorrow. I'm just making this video now. I just wanted to say that, this is what the election's all about. It should be all about is health care. So you need to get out and vote because Doug Ford does not care about our healthcare system. If you've been to UH Hospital or LHSC Hospital like I have, you'll realize that the hospital is falling apart. And Doug Ford's had 7 years in power, and he's done absolutely nothing to help our healthcare system. So this is what the election's all about. Make sure you vote for the right party. 7 years of inaction by Doug Ford is despicable. It is unbelievable. And it is not to be accepted what he has done to our healthcare system. We are a very lucky country to be able to have free healthcare. We used to have some of the best healthcare in the whole world. And our healthcare system has fallen apart because of the inaction from the conservative government. It's very disappointing. And I'm very upset with our government the way it is. During Doug Ford's time in office, I'm not too sure if you're familiar with what he's did to our system of helping the poor, but he has helped nobody that's poor. And, it's totally unacceptable. I lost a brother. This is my brother here. I won't give you the name, but yeah, I lost my brother during the Ford premier, being premier. Him being premier for 7 years. I lost my brother. Back in 95, this is my mother. Back in 95, we had Mike Harris as a premier. Mike Harris did absolutely nothing to help people with addictions. My mother was caught up in the drug war, the war on drugs. And I was only with my mother for a short period of time as a baby, so I don't remember my mother's voice or my father's voice. My father passed away in Toronto of an overdose in 2001 in a rehabilitation center run by a psychiatric nurse out of Whitby. And our government has done absolutely nothing to help victims of the drug war or the war on drugs. And it all goes back to our healthcare system. I spent a long time up north in Northern Ontario, in Long Lac, Ontario, with my sick grandmother. I became like a PSW that was unlicensed in my own home in Northern Ontario. I had no privacy. I'm 31 years old. I have no friends. And one of the reasons is because I spent so long up north looking after my sick grandmother that I didn't have a life. And it's unacceptable that we are leaving our seniors, our young people, our old people, people in between, young kids, disabled in homes with no home care, with no PSW support. We're taking our PSW support out of the schools. Why? Doug Ford has done absolutely nothing to help our healthcare system. I've been in LHSC. I just recently had an elder almost die in the ICU in LHSC. I've seen the problems in LHSC. I've seen the homeless at LHSC. I've seen the waiting areas at LHSC. I've seen the waiting areas at UH. Nothing's being done. Why? We have St. Joseph's Hospital, used to be one of the biggest hospitals in London, that doesn't even allow people to stay overnight. It's run very badly. Why? Why isn't our hospital system run more better than it is? We've had 7 years of the Ford government. It shouldn't be this way. He's done a little bit of work at Parkwood. That's all he's did. He's demolished our South Street Hospital to build apartments. He's demolished our psychiatric facility that was off of Highbury and Dundas, and they want to build apartments there now. They're building a pet shelter place and apartments, but it used to be our hospital. We are down to two or three hospitals. Um, you know, really, St. Joseph's is not even a real hospital because they're not accepting patients to stay overnight, and they're not doing baby deliveries there, so you can't have a baby there. Our hospital system's falling apart, Ontario. You need to get out and vote. Make sure you vote for the right party. Another thing I'd like to mention is our housing. Our housing system is falling apart. We have thousands of homeless in London, Ontario. This is where I am, in London. And I see homeless every time I go downtown. I used to live up north, as I was saying. I come back down to southern Ontario, and I see things have gotten worse. It's gotten really bad. There's homeless everywhere. There's no housing. There's not enough housing being built. The house prices are way too high. The rental costs are way too high. So if you're not a person that's in gear to income rent, or a person that's like, having a rent that's at a reasonable rate, you are paying top dollar in the rental market right now, and there's no rent control, so they're allowed to charge whatever they want. Rooms in the city are absolutely outrageous, the cost for a room to rent. Even our motels are that way. It's gotten so bad. The food costs. Doug Ford has done nothing for Northern Ontario in terms of food costs. And just like Southern Ontario, they're allowing, along with our Prime Minister, who I didn't vote for, they're allowing the corporations like Loblaws to charge whatever they want. They're robbing our Canadians blind. They're overcharging for everything. Have you been in the grocery stores? Have you seen the prices? It's ridiculous. It's uncalled for, and it's unfair. You have a monopoly going. I'm 31 years old. Doug Ford talks about he's building a highway. I don't have a license. How's that going to help me, Ford? It's not going to help me. I don't drive. I don't drive not because I have fines. I don't have any fines. I don't have a criminal record, no fines. I can't afford insurance. The insurance is too high. You need to bring the costs down so people can afford to drive. The cost of vehicles right now, insane. I'm not paying to buy a new vehicle. I can't afford it. How am I going to buy an electric vehicle? How am I going to buy a vehicle off the car lot? I don't have the money to, right? So what he's talking about, when I was up north, I find it really ridiculous what he's talking about, because now he's got people from the Long Lake 58 Reserve standing beside him talking about the Ring of Fire. When I was up there, I was talking about hemp. We need hemp fuel. Hemp fuel, not electric vehicles. He's pushing the electric vehicles. He wants to take out all the lithium and uranium and everything else, all the minerals, so he can ship it globally. What are you going to do when you have nothing left? Kimberly Clark was up there for a while, and they were taking paper out to make toilet paper and diapers and wipes and whatever. And, now our forests are depleted. The trees are not like what they used to be. It used to have a lot of trees. There used to be a lot of trees up there. And they replant once in a while, but it's still, they're taking swaths of land out and then shipping it overseas. And how our toilet paper is being made is not so much in Canada. It's being shipped to places like the States to be assembled and then shipped back, and we buy it back. So these people that are out there that are talking about, they love Donald Trump so much. Donald Trump wants to screw Canadians. Basically, what he wants to do is make a lot of money off of Canadians. He's not for us. He's not for us. So if you hear these people talking about how great Donald Trump is, they're a bunch of traitors, because they're willing to give him all our resources for next to nothing and have us buy it back at large amounts of money. Our resources should stay in Canada. There's no reason why. We used to have factories here in London. Kelvinator and all the other, companies used to operate here, out of Canada. But we still don't have cars that are made here in Canada under our own company labels. Like GM and Ford, that's from the States. Why can't we have vehicles that are made here in Canada with new names? with new names. We don't need to be making stuff over there. We have our own stuff. Why can't we use our own minerals, our own materials, and make our own stuff here and ship it out? You know, have them pay the big prices for our stuff. They want it, they should pay for it, right? But that's not the way our government is operating right now. And they know that the electric vehicles are not going to be a good idea in terms of it's going to create a lot of battery waste. It's going to create a lot of vehicles that don't work, you know, and you can't fix them. And it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. We could be using hemp fuel and make vehicles that don't break down, you know, and they're made out of metal, not plastic, you know, and they're cheap, not expensive, and you don't have to replace the batteries all the time, and they're not autonomous where they're being driven by themselves. This is ridiculous. You're going to cause a lot of accidents, you know. Also, another thing I'd like to mention is Doug Ford's beer in the beer stores and in our corner stores. While I don't think it's a good idea to have beer in our corner stores, because right now, as it sits, I live down the street from a corner store and they sell beer and knives. Big knives, big giant knives that could hurt people, and they sell it to anybody. So I don't think it's a good idea for somebody to be able to walk into the corner store and grab a beer and a knife. Just my opinion. The gas station down the road, they also have the option where I was there the other day and I was getting some food from A&W, and there's a guy and he's going in there to get a beer. And then he hops back into his vehicle. I don't think that's a good idea. I really don't. So Doug Ford putting beer in corner stores and in our grocery stores, you know, when you go to Metro, they're in there giving shots out to people, you know, glasses of wine or whatever, and their whole sections of wine and everything else. But when it comes to marijuana, they don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to have marijuana on the shelves at all. They don't want it to be like tomatoes. They don't want that. But they'll allow the beer though. That's, you know, that's like kind of like our healthcare system right now. When you go to the hospital, they'll tell you, we don't want you to do marijuana. We don't want you to do that cannabis. But it's okay to do all the synthetic pills. You know, they're against natural medicine. When I was there was a seminar by Native people that were talking about the need to bring back natural medicine. Sorry, it's hard to talk because I got false teeth. But we need to bring back the natural medicine and get our people outside more. It's too much in the house. It's too much. You're enclosing people off and then just forgetting about them. It's, you know, our hospital is being run very badly. If you get a chance to go and really see what I'm talking about, you'll be appalled. I've been through the whole system. You know, my elder was in the ICU. He went through the ICU for months, and he eventually got better, and they extubated him, and then he was on, like, you know, the floor of the hospital where you get sent from the ICU to the floor where everybody is in, like, rooms and stuff. Well, he left against medical advice, and they left the main PICC line in his chest, and he had to go back to the hospital. Now, when he went back to the hospital, they didn't, or they tried to play dumb, or they didn't know, but they didn't realize that he was still under sedation from the ICU, and so he was kind of talking kind of funny and whatever. So they sent him to the 7th floor of the hospital. Now, I had to go through the whole procedure with him, where you go through the emerge at LHSC, you end up in the isolation rooms, and then you go to the 7th floor of the hospital. When I got to the 7th floor of the hospital, I haven't been in London in 10 years. So when I came back here, and I seen how badly our hospital is, I was appalled. There's writing all over the walls. They put the diapers and stuff. You know, I have incontinence too, so yeah, I wear diapers too. But the incontinence issues on the 7th floor, they just put, I have photos and I can't really share because I don't want the legality of it, and I also don't want, I live in the city, so I don't want repercussions to happen to me because I release photos. But I have photos of, you know, them, the diapers just get put in paper bags, and just left on the floor for the cleaning lady to pick up, which 9 times out of 10 it's a lady from another country. So the way they're doing it is just like making them work for nothing and be a slave and pick up after everybody, and it's very unsanitary. And the sheets, and nothing gets changed like it's supposed to. I found myself doing what a nurse should be doing. Now, that's not fair, right? It's not fair at all. I shouldn't be the one that's, looking after my elder at the hospital doing what the hospital should be doing. Right? I go there and I see my relative, he doesn't get the right food, he was not getting the right food. And I had to request them to, ask why. I had to request them to change my relative because they were leaving him in soiled garments and stuff like that. You shouldn't have to ask. It should be done, right? And so I'm seeing things that aren't right, And I've been up north. I went through VONs, like I said. They used to come every day to our house at 8 o'clock in the morning. I used to have 2 VONs and the doctor there that would come all the time. The car that I had in Long Lac was owned by a former nurse, right? And so, like, I had a good relationship with the VON there, and what I seen in Long Lac was unbelievable too. So in terms of healthcare, they didn't have proper equipment. PPE wasn't there. The chairlift to get my grandmother into the washroom to go to either the toilet or to the shower wasn't there. So they weren't giving her showers, and she was just laying in bed all day and night in feces and everything else. And so she developed rashes where she ended up in Geraldton Hospital, and they ended up coming in saying you can't live at home anymore, and they forced her in there, and that was before Doug Ford's law where you're not allowed to live at the hospital. But yeah, anyway, getting back to LHSC, it's the same kind of thing, but this is in the hospital. So when I'm up there and I see how bad things are, there's writing all over the walls. They're allowing people to, visit people's rooms, male and female, and they're going after people in there. Like, the way it's run is very, very, very dangerous. I seen one guy, he had a chocolate milk, and the other guy tried to take his chocolate milk, and there was a big confrontation, and the staff just sat there and did nothing really about it, and they provoke things to happen. It's really not a really good place to be. Why my elder was on the 7th floor, I have no idea. I came back and I realized, they made the mistake. They're the ones that made the mistake to put my elder there. He didn't need to be there, and eventually he was discharged from there, but it took a long time to fight that. And so, anyway, I just don't understand why our healthcare system is this bad. Our city is 400,000. It never used to be that way. When I was young, I used to know almost everybody in town. And the thing is that we're growing as a population, which is a good thing. We're known for multiculturalism, and that's a great thing for London. We should be proud of that. But the thing is we don't have the resources to look after everybody. And so now it's straining our system as we only have 2 hospitals. We used to have South Street, we used to have the hospital on Highbury, but because those are closed, it's straining our hospitals badly because LHSC takes patients from St. Thomas, Elmer. Elmer doesn't have a hospital, just has a medical clinic. And so all those places, Tillsonburg, St. Thomas, all the little towns, Stratfordville, all those little towns all around there, Port Burwell, all the Harrietsville, Dorchester, all those towns, they rely on LHSC. And so our hospital is being strained really badly. Ingersoll, all those places rely on LHSC and St. Joe's and, a few other ones that are the University Hospital. And so we don't have the resources because we're losing it. And we could be funding our healthcare system, but they're investing in stupid things like alcohol in corner stores, tunnels, highway tunnels, twinning of the highway doesn't need to be twinned. We see 401. Don't you see 401? How bad it is? It isn't going to make it any better if you put... What they are calling for is for the highway in by where Coquihalla is. Now, if they could make the Coquihalla go all the way to Windsor, twinning 4 lanes all the way, that's what they want. That's what they're doing. That's what they want to do, and then they could get all the minerals out of the north, all the minerals that they can try to get, all the trees, everything, deplete everything, and then we have nothing. And then I don't know what they're going to do after that, and the pollution is going to be unbelievable. They can't even drink the water in Grassy Narrows. There's nobody talking about the native issues right now too much. And Doug Ford is just, going off of getting elected from the steam of Donald Trump, from the stupid people that don't see Donald Trump for what he is. He's a convicted fucking rapist. He's a convicted, he's got multiple convictions. How could you not see what Donald Trump is for what he really is? When I was growing up here in London, I ended up at a farm here in London, outside of town. Now, I went with a friend, and I didn't know. I got into a vehicle, and I went out there, and I ended up at this farm. And I don't really realize where I was until I was there. But I was told it was a big metropolis place, and where everybody had fun for the weekends. But I ended up there, and it was like very weird experience. I wouldn't take back all the fun times I had, but there was a lot of weirdness. And if you want to look at Donald Trump and you want to look at that experience, it's pretty much the same thing. Older men around young women, and the jokes that are being said is not very nice. And to me, I felt weird when I heard the jokes being said. Now, other people thought it was funny. I didn't. The rebel flag, hung off of cars, and it was treated like a rebellious thing, but really in reality it is racist. Okay, you can say whatever you want. You might, Pug, you might think that it's a rebel thing, whatever. But to me, I look at it as there is a racist overtone to it. Okay, and I'm addressing this because I think that it wasn't a good thing that we kind of did that, where we hung a rebel flag off cars and drove around and act like idiots. And now I look back at all that, and I think I had a good time, but at the same time there was things that I would have probably did differently. But I'm glad I had elders around me that protected me from any kind of abuse or any kind of stuff like that. But the women that were showing up were not. It wasn't a good thing. You should never have old guys around young women the way it was and all that. But I don't really want to talk too much about it because I don't want to get anybody into trouble and stuff like that. But I just want to address the racist part of it. Because you got to remember, we are on native land. And so to do what was done and, only have white people most of the time and stuff like that, I just didn't agree. A lot of people I used to talk to, I don't talk to anymore. I'm a very private type of person. In terms of, I like myself space, I guess you could say. But I'm also a very public person when it comes to my life. I live my life with the London Free Press always in my face, since my mom was murdered in the city in '95. But there's been no help from the government, from my family. I have a lot of family that are struggling in the city right now. So when I look at the street people, I have a very different perspective. Okay, because I have people that live downtown that are related to me, that are homeless, and I also have people that are going through hardship right now that aren't homeless, that are related to me. So I don't look down on people, I don't look down at people at all. I've been homeless in the city just like a lot of the people that are homeless. I've been in the same position, so that's why I don't look down on people. you know. But I do see the need to change things. I got mad. I went down there. I rant and raved, and it got me nowhere. It got me nowhere. They don't listen. I went to City Hall. I got kicked out, and that was when Maureen Cassidy and the mayor Matt Brown or whatever his name is was there, um, and they all kicked me out with security. So I went to the library. I got kicked out there. I voiced my opinion. I've been in rallies in the city. Um, like I said, I'm the days of the farm, being out at the farm. Like I lived on a farm myself too, before Dave's farm and all that. I lived out at a farm in Elmer, and that was most of my childhood was Elmer and Port Stanley, um, and all that. I went to school in Elmer, and things like that. But like getting back to what I was saying, like um, the help for the people here in the city is just not there. It's just not. And even if you know we get a change of government, what needs to happen is rent control. Like when I was young, we rented places. Like in Elmer, when I lived on a farm, it was a rental. When I lived in Port Stanley, it was a rental. I worked at a church, Port Stanley, it was a rental. My grandmother lived in Port Stanley in a rental. 2 rentals. So, but it was cheap then. You could go to Windsor, which I lived in Windsor too. $500 a month for a whole house in Windsor in 2011. Now, good luck, you won't find that, right? So, my house during the pandemic got burned down. I left Long Lac because of the racism and the cultural war and the resource extraction and the high cost of lumber and the food. And my house was falling apart. My grandmother died in Geraldton. Things like that. I left to go better my life and come back, and I was planning on coming back. And I had a neighbor say, "Hey, did you know your house burned down?" And sent me pictures of my house burning. And then I had another neighbor that sent me photos of the burned out house at the end. Now I didn't have insurance because it was too expensive, because our home had a fireplace, and just the way things are up there, it's very high cost, so I couldn't afford insurance, and I couldn't afford the snowmobile license or dirt bike license or ATV or car license. Like I was stuck in this town, right? And if you wanted to go to Thunder Bay or Geraldton, it was lots of money. I think I talked about that online, where the cost for a cab was outrageous. And now I hear about the racism going on with the cabs there. And that was going on when I was there too. And there's just a lot of problems. And so I left, and then I find out my house burned down. And I have no idea what to do now. It's basically gone. They put the taxes way high up, so my uncle couldn't afford, because the house wasn't in my name and the furniture that was in it was grandmother's furniture. It wasn't an empty house, it had furniture in it, but it was just not all my furniture, it was my grandmother's. But anyway, the taxes, they kept adding all these taxes. I know there's some people on my Facebook that are from Long Lac. Okay, well, the taxes, what they did is they added all this stuff onto the taxes after the house burned. And they said, you got to clean it up, and they put an order to clean it up, and they put a lot of money order to clean it up. And then they also added onto the water and onto the taxes. Before the house burned, the taxes were low, very low amount. After the house burned, taxes went sky high. All these bills they kept tacking on. So now they want like $17,000 in full, not payments. They won't let you make payments. Because the guy said on the phone, "We let you make payments once, and we kept phoning you and all this stuff, and meanwhile the bill was at $17,000, whatever. That was before all this stuff. But he won't let you make payments, so now they want it in full. How can they do that? I don't know. But the whole thing, the whole fire started there, and I have no idea the cause, but I suspect it was the neighbor that did it, because when I left, The offer was given to buy the home, our home, from us by that neighbor. And he offered and he never came through with the money. And so I said, well, I said to my uncle, I said, don't worry, we'll just leave the house the way it is, board it up and go. And so that's what we did. We put the washing machine in front of the door, locked it all up the best I could. I put metal over the back door, everything I could possibly do to make it so people wouldn't go in there. And people did, obviously, or somebody threw on top of it flames or something like that. Maybe they threw Molotovs or something like that. I don't know. But the guy next door was interested in buying it so he could rip it down and put a garage on that piece of property. So I suspect he was a firefighter. So I suspect that they had something to do with it. I don't know. I can't confirm it, but I know that I suspect they had something to do with it. And the city didn't like me because I was anti-logging and mining, but I'm not anti-paper, but like I'm anti logging. I'm anti extraction and logging, but I'm not anti-paper products because I would like to see our paper products being switched into hemp, so we could still have our toilet paper, diapers, whatever, tampons, whatever, but just made out of hemp instead of paper. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'm not totally against the industry. I'm just against the way things are done. And so the ingredients need to be changed that way. It's not harming our environment, but they don't want to seem to do that. They want to keep doing this thing with the old way, keep doing things the old way, living in the past. Now, if you go there to Northern Ontario or you're living there, a lot of the times they'll say, don't come here and change the way we're living because you want to change things. Well, if you don't evolve, you'll just stay in the past, unfortunately. Our cities are where I am right now. People are evolving. They don't want to live in the past. They want to go forward. In order to go forward, you have to change the way you do things. You know, you want them all this mining and all this stuff, but once this industry pulls in, you're not going to like it, okay? You're not going to like it. They already put Ukrainians there from Ukraine, from the war, to work in the mines. You guys didn't like that. Eventually, they're going to do that again, and they'll just keep doing it, creating wars and sending the people here to work. And that's what war does. It doesn't solve anything. It just creates more refugees. So if you don't want the refugees here, don't have war, you know? But anyway, getting back to, you know, the old Leonard Skinner song about, you know, kiss your freedom goodbye. Yeah, that's what's happening. When you go up there, you'll start to see people are going up there, and more and more people are coming, but it's not just people, it's industry. So the industry's pulling in and destroying everything and leaving. KC used to have multiple mills up there. Kimberly-Clark, the maker of all Huggies and Depend and whatever else. They were up there for years, but they pulled out in certain areas, but they're still up there. But in certain areas, they pulled out. But there's still large amounts of paper companies up there. Resolute's up there. There's a bunch of different ones that are taking out the paper to make the products. Like, we have to have products, and our PPE and everything is made out of paper. But if we could change that into hemp, it would be a lot better for our environment. The highways, I would like to see the infrastructure in the small communities fixed before the highway. Right, there's a lot of problems in Long Lac. There's a lot of houses, and they're old and they're falling apart. Ours was falling up. The siding was falling off. The inside was all wood paneling. So if you took all the wood paneling off, which we did in some areas, and it was all rotten, like the 2x4s, the studs and stuff were all rotten. So there was nothing to screw to. So you would have had to replace all the studs all the way around, the drywall all the way around, and then the siding all the way around, and then it needed a new roof. So you might as well just build a new house, right? And so yeah, they don't have money to do it. Like, there's people who can't afford it. And then you look in London, and the houses are getting old too, and that same kind of thing is happening. It's just like nothing lasts forever. So you have to replace things. You have to do things. Our UH hospital, it's falling apart. It needs help, right? And the only way to do that is if you invest in stuff. And if you have a population that's out of work, can't find jobs, um, things like that, it's very hard to afford to fix your home or fix your business or whatever. You know? And another thing I'd like to mention is sorry, it's hard to talk with my teeth. Just take a drink here. Sorry. I'd like to mention our downtown. They like to blame the homeless for the lack of businesses being able to stay open, and I don't think that it's the homeless people's fault. I think that it's the construction fault, the need to build a stupid stone walkway down there. Didn't need to be that way. They should have invested in signage. They should have invested in people. They should have invested in lowering the prices of things. They destroyed our downtown. Mayor Gosnell and all those other mayors that were there, Diane Haskett, there's a bunch of different ones that were in power then, and they were the problem. They created a lot of problems down there. Our Capitol Theater was destroyed. They destroyed the whole theater, the back of it, and we could have saved that. It could have been fixed and saved, but instead they destroyed it. They could still do something with it if they rebuilt the back of it. People say, "Oh, it's gone, it's done." No, rebuild the back of it. Rebuild the back of it and reopen it. Like what would be that? Why is that so hard to do, right? Music hall's been down there for years. It does good because it stayed a music hall. But also the fact that when the Mascot restaurant was taken over, he did really well when he took that all over and turned it into what it is now with Tim Hortons and the music hall beside it. But that does it pretty good. But like I said, the Century Theater is gone. All those theaters that were there, the arcade that was down there, the fun is gone. The fun part of downtown is gone. And there's nothing to go down there for. Galleria Mall was a waste of money. It sits empty. It's a waste of money. It was a big waste of money, and it ruined our downtown. Mark Henry City Lights bookstore. Before that was the Fig Leaf, but there's still Attic Books. There's a couple other bookstore. Oxford Bookstore was down there for years. But and we also had a lot of bars. Now people always say, "I don't feel safe downtown." Well, there used to be a lot of bars downtown. There was a lot of drunks, there was a lot of violence, a lot of abuse. There's people in my family that went through abuse because they had stepfathers and stuff like that. But there's also a lot of abuse from partying that was going on down there. Lots of partying. So it's always been party central downtown. So if you're looking to be safe downtown, it's probably not going to be the best place to be because there's always craziness going on from the bars. And it's never really been safe. If you look into history, you read into the history of the London Free Press or any kind of papers, it will tell you there was brawls, there was stabbings, there was lots of different violent stuff going on downtown. Any kind of police officer in the city that's a veteran will tell you that. It was not a nice place in the 60s and 70s and 80s and even in the 90s. So, look what happened to my mother in the 90s. So it was never a safe place to be. So the people that are saying, well, we need to make it safe. Well, you're never going to make it safe unless you want a retirement village downtown. And that's what seems like you guys want to turn it into with condos. Downtown is not a place to live. It shouldn't be a place to live. It was a place to go shopping downtown. I don't know why you guys keep wanting to turn it into a place to live. It's not a place to live. It's a place to go shopping and have fun. That was the meaning of downtown years ago. So this whole thing of let's turn it into a place to retire downtown is weird to me. You know, they have Rock the Park every year. They're told to turn it down. Um, they're told to turn down the volume because all the people in the high rises up on the hill, they all complain. They all complain it's too loud. We can hear it from down there, blah, blah, blah. And that's why it got turned down. And Rock the Park went from being a really good thing in the city, brought a lot of revenue. People had fun. It was a big. I used to go every year. Every year I used to go to Rock the Park since it started. When it first started in the early 2000s, I went to Rock the Park. Now, when you go to Rock the Park, the ticket price is way too expensive. The food is ridiculous. They don't let you smoke or vape, but they'll let you drink. And the musicians, they don't seem to call it out. I said to Brian Vollmer the other day, I said, why do you keep playing at places that restrict, the vaping and stuff like that? Like, if, you're a musician, why don't you say, I'm not playing here unless my people can vape and smoke? Whatever, right? Like, they're paying the money, why shouldn't they be able to have a toke or something like that, right? They should be allowed to. If you're having a beer, what's wrong with having a little bit of smoke, right? I'm not too sure why the city's allowing all this stuff and the musicians don't stand up and the ticket costs are ridiculous. And, like when I seen Taylor Swift, I didn't go see her in concert, but when I seen what happened there in Toronto where she got an escort to go to her concert and stuff like that, like, no, you pay for that yourself. It should be, if you want that kind of stuff, you pay for it yourself, right? But you should be standing up and standing up and saying, my people are not going to be treated that way. My fans are not going to be treated that way. They should be allowed to vape or smoke a joint and not be penalized. Because, the drunk people are allowed to do whatever they want. When you go to JLC, you're strip searched almost, basically. Maybe not right down to nothing, but you're patted down and everything just to go into LHSC. Seems like that's almost like the hospital where you're on the 7th floor and they don't let you go and see your elder, until you get wanded and stuff like that. And the same security guards that are down at Rock the Park work in our hospital system and the Galleria Mall as security. And I see these security people all over our city, and it's like, this is over security, this is over policed. It's so badly done, it's unreal. I'm very appalled to see what's going on. Our police force has Dodge Chargers and Challengers, and they can't even get the healthcare system better help. Like, we have dispatches for healthcare agencies, one of them St. Thomas. They can't build a new station for their EMS there, but they can afford all this money for police. Something's wrong there, right? St. Thomas's police force, they got brand new vehicles, all these brand new vehicles for the security and police, but when it comes to the healthcare to better our people, they can't invest in it. Why? Right? The conservatives, they went after farmers. One of them was Frank Myers. They took his land, turned it into a fucking army base. Like, you want to know what I think about it? That's what I think is, these conservatives are out to lunch, man. They want to conquer our country and turn it into the United States of America. They're fans of Donald Trump. They're traitors. You're a fucking traitor if you support Donald Trump. And I'm telling you that right now. You're a fucking traitor. I don't fucking like traitors, man. You want to go live over there? Go pack your shit up and go and live over there. Don't try to tell me to be like an American. This is Canada. And you better get out and fucking vote Canadians or it's going to turn into America. I'm warning you that right now. I'm warning you. Because this is fucking bullshit. I've had enough of it. I'm sick of seeing the overtone, the racial overtones when you go to the grocery stores talking about it's all the immigrants' fault. No, it isn't. You're an immigrant too. You're a fucking immigrant too, just like me. I'm a white immigrant. My ancestors came from Irish, Scotland. You could tell by my red hair, whatever. Not any better than the people that came here from Syria or the people that came here from Palestine or the people that came here from any country. I'm not any better than them. I'm on native land. I stand on native land. People say, "Oh, your house up north. Why didn't you go up there?" But your house and all that. The house is a house. It's land. It's not. It's not my land. It's stolen native land. In reality, all of it is. I look at things a little bit different than most people. Because I want to believe in what the truth is, not the lie, the colonizer lie. I worked at a church in Port Stanley, Ontario. I seen things that go on in the churches. Not saying all churches are like that, because they're not. But there is churches that are up to no good. I got to see it from my own two eyes. My own two eyes, I seen what was going on. I question even God because of what I seen. So, for me to see what I'm seeing now, and like I said, with the immigrant crisis, what we're going through, and then have to see everywhere I go, people talking about it's Trudeau's fault, it's immigrants' fault. They always want to have somebody to blame, never take responsibility. It bugs me. That really bugs me. That they don't want to take responsibility for the things that went on in this country and realize that it was really all parties that had contributed to the problem, not just one particular party. And the wars went on without Canadian people having a voice. I didn't vote to take our country to war, to go to Libya, to go to Syria, to go to all these different, Iraq, Afghanistan, all the other ones. I didn't vote for that. I was just able to vote when I went to Northern Ontario in 2011. It was only a couple years later that I got to vote provincially. And so when I seen Tim Hudak was going to get into power, I said, fuck that, I'm going to vote against Tim Hudak. And so I voted for Wynne. And Wynne won. And she won, but the thing is, I wanted her to do more to help our province. But she did do something. And one of the things was she created basic income. She didn't give it to me as I didn't qualify. But you know what? She helped other people with basic income. What the fuck did Ford do? He got into power, he canceled the basic income. He gave people $200 checks and said that was a good idea. He has done nothing to help our poor. I've seen our poor starving. I've seen our poor homeless down there freezing to death. I come across people when I was going to counseling. Guy laying right there in the middle of the sidewalk. I shouldn't have to see that. But I'm seeing it. And I don't agree with what our government's doing. I don't understand why the Canadian people, why they want to keep a guy that's been in there for 7 years. They want to re-elect him because they think he's like Donald Trump and he's going to come be their savior. That's pretty odd to me. It's pretty odd. You want to be on the guy's side, the guy that supports Donald Trump, who's a fucking traitor, and you want to support a traitor guy that's named Doug Ford, whose brother was a crackhead in Toronto. His brother was no different than my dad. My dad was also a cocaine user. He's no different than my dad. I'm pretty sure my dad probably dealt drugs too. So they're no different. Your relative is no different than mine. So, and Donald Trump, he's a drug dealer too. He dealt drugs out of the White House. So, and the idea of going back to forcibly rehab and all this stuff, that doesn't work. It doesn't work. You need rehab, but not like that. You don't need to close safe injection sites and create more spread of AIDS. You don't sit higher above everybody like you think you do, Doug. You don't. You're not any better than me. Not any better than the other guy down the street, or the guy down, 4 blocks from here, or 10 blocks from here, whatever. You're not any better. So, I don't understand the people that, want to sit there and say this guy named Doug Ford, is going to be the great savior and he's going to save our province. Meanwhile, he's had 7 years and he's did absolutely nothing. Nothing. No environmental protections. No, he wants to take over a green belt and extract. He wants to clear cut. He wants destruction. And all these people clap for him. Like I said, I'm 31. When I got up north, I elected Wynne. And I think she did more for this province than Doug Ford has ever did. You can say whatever you want. Oh, she's gay. Whatever. So what? Guess what? Doug Ford and his buddy Trump are against gay people. Well, he sits there and buddy with Elon. You know, probably having a relationship with Elon. Who knows? But they stand against trans people and gay people. Why are you so focused on the bathrooms of trans people? Like, you know, trans people using women's bathrooms for? Weird. It's pretty weird. You have a weird thing about that. I think it's weird. You know, and would you say the same thing for a female that wants to use a men's restroom because she's gay? Like, my grandmother was gay. You know, I grew up with accepting the gay community. I never was against gay people. I've never been against. I never had a factuation of where they use the washroom or, you know, I don't understand that mentality of, you know, why they're so fixated on that. It's none of your business. And as long as they're going in there and doing what they got to do and leave, then what business of it is yours, right? We have a hospital right now. I don't know if you know this, but we have a hospital in London, Ontario called LHSC that has a bathroom that, for one thing, is covered in graffiti. Another thing is it doesn't have, the hospital itself only has one washroom with a change table in it for adults. And so we have a whole hospital that only has one change table. Now, you want to talk about people with disabilities? I have a developmental disability, okay? And there's no places in this city to go and change if you have incontinence issues like I do. Now, if you wear adult briefs or adult diapers, whatever term you use, some people use diapers, some people say briefs, pull-ups, whatever. If you want to go change that in a washroom, in any kind of facility we have, most of the restaurants, they don't have them. So where are you to change your diaper? On the floor. Right? And so this is we need more accessibility for our disabled people. The NDP advocate for that, they're advocating for more help for accessibility for disabled people. But the Liberal Party is talking about increasing the ODSP rate, which is good. I think that's a good thing. But our OW rates need to be increased. They need to be increased. They haven't been increased in 6 years and longer than that. People that are on OW can't find a place to be because they can't afford it. You know, and all you hear is, them damn welfare people. No, them damn welfare corporations that are getting all the fucking corporate welfare. That's what you should be worried about. Not the little guy that's getting a little bit of welfare check. You should be worried about the fucking corporate welfare people that are getting thousands and thousands and millions of dollars. One of them is fucking Loblaws. And you don't say nothing about that. Why? Why aren't you calling out the corporate welfare people? Why are you worried about the people that are on ODSP or OW? It makes me wonder why. I'm 31. I'm not this hippy-dippy type of person that you guys all want to just paint everybody as hippy-dippies. And I don't see nothing wrong with hippies anyway. You know? Like they have this stigmatization against hippies too. Oh, they're just hippy-dippy hipsters or whatever they try to say we are. You know, liberals. They're just liberals. Not everybody, the way they think, you know, just because you're liberal doesn't mean you're an asshole. But that's the way they're trying to paint everybody. You know? I look at the conservatives as assholes because their mentality of how they treat people. You're not any better than anybody. I don't know who the fuck you think you are, but you're not better than me. You're not better than anybody. just because you are going by the name conservative or Republican. I've been through too much in my life to be pushed around by these conservative Republican people. And if you noticed, when they go to fight, they go and get their weapon. They can't fight without their weapon. The cops are the same way. Conservative cops, the same thing. They can't fight without their weapon. They always got to have a weapon. And the first thing they do is insults with threatening with violence. They cannot, it's never just solving a problem without violence. They always got to threaten with violence. It's uncalled for, really. You know? And they always look at the weak as the prey. They always prey on the weak. That's that's when they want to pick on somebody, they go, their prey is prey on the weak. The vulnerable, the weak, the babies, the kids. They use kids, same thing. They're just, it's all the kids' fault. It's this generation. It's that generation. No, it's not this generation or that generation. It's society. It's fucked by colonization that's made it this way. When we were up north, there was a church that burned to the ground. I don't know who burned it, but a lot of violence in that church done by conservative people. I heard a few days ago somebody say about the St. Joseph's name, St. Joe's. The nuns that worked for St. Joe's, there was a lot of people that were nuns that worked for St. Joe's that weren't nice people. You could say what you want. There was, I imagine there's people that were nice, but there was a lot of people that were doing some heinous things back then. But people want to believe that, all the good old days, it was all the good old days. Good old days were a lot better than today. Good old days. No. If you had to live in those good old days, you wouldn't be saying that. I grew up poor. I grew up, I was in the city here. I lived in motels. I lived the hard way. I lived in trailer parks. I lived in crack houses. I lived in craziness. Okay? I've seen most of everything you could see. I've seen it. That's why I don't fear anybody. But I do, when I hear people say you have to have no fear, I always say to them, you're wrong, because I had a friend that died and she drowned in our lakes, in Wash. And she was, only a little girl at the time. And, I don't understand why people say you should have no fear. If you can't swim, then you shouldn't go past the sandbar. But because people are always, you're a wimp, keep going. No, it's dangerous. You should have fear. Water is a very dangerous thing. And if you think you can outnumber water, there's a problem, because water can kill you, right? And so I always had, in my mind, I always think, having fear about some things is good. I'm not a person that won't try things, but I think you should have fear in some instances, because sometimes you think you're invincible and you're not. So, but yeah, the whole colonization thing. When I was going to school, they wanted to teach us about Christopher Columbus, and so we learned a lot about Christopher Columbus, but not the native way. So when I quit school here in London, I went to Clark Road, Beale, and those are the two high schools I went to. But I got bullied a lot. I was followed around, by numbers of people. And I grew up in Hamilton Road area, so it was pretty crazy rough, right? But I got bullied, and a lot of the times it wasn't even those people, certain people. It was just random people too, because I had red hair, so it was kick a ginger day sort of thing. And then they had ass smacking Fridays and stuff like that. It was just stupid things that we did as a kid, stupid, really, and stupid things that were done to me that weren't. It was bullying, what it was. And the thing is I quit because of that. Not just because of the bullying, but also because the interest in things I didn't want to learn about Christopher Columbus. I wanted to learn about the native roots of our city and our culture. And they weren't teaching it. Like, what about the Irish culture? They had no, it was all about Christopher Columbus and English, right? Geography, English, right? It was not about the native culture. And just recently, when I was at the hospital in LHSC, there was a girl, and it really bugged me because there was a girl, and she was standing there in the emergency room, and she had a Bible, and she was reading out of this Bible, and she was a little bit screwed up um, from medications, I think, but she was pretty screwed up that way. But she was reading this Bible, and I'm thinking to myself, you need to get back to your roots, because that Bible is very bad in terms of they came with the Bible and tried to colonize your people. And to see that was very sad to me, because that they basically got they basically, you know, got that person hooked on medication, and now she's reading out of a Bible, right? So I didn't like that at all. And then I seen another guy who was native, and they weren't even listening to him. They handcuffed him in the emerge. They had handcuffs on him, and he was saying, "Let me go," and they're just the cops, the London cops weren't. They for their own safety or whatever, they just left the cuffs on, and the guy was freaking out. But yeah, I just I see so much in the city here, but the native culture is not being taught in our schools, and so I would skip class a lot, just to get away from the bullying and numb out a little bit with marijuana, stuff like that. But I tried cigarettes first, so I was hooked on the cigarettes. But you could get anything you wanted. You could get cigarettes, booze, whatever. I'm not a rat, so I'm not going to name names, but you could get anything you wanted, pretty much. But like I said, I quit school in grade 9, 10. So I think I have like a grade 10. Pretty much I have that, but that's all I have. And so, and I have health problems. I was in an ISC class. So I was in ISC class in Elmer, in a class of 10, and we had personal support workers, so the personal support worker would help us with getting to a bathroom. Some of us had, issues, right? So, but we had mental issues the whole way through, so we weren't allowed to be in the class with 32 kids. So we would go 8 o'clock in the morning. From 8 o'clock until 12 o'clock, we would be in the ISC class with 10 kids and the teachers and the support workers. And then at 12 o'clock, we would join the 32 for the rest of the day with the support workers by our side. So that was that. And then what screwed me up was when we first started, it was at Summers Corners, and I was living on John Wise Line, and I was going to Summers Corners, and I was in a regular class with everybody, right? And so, but the thing is because my mental health issues, they basically said certain people, there was like 10 or 15 of us, that we got into vans and were transported to Davenport, where they put us in the ISC class and gave us Voyager vans to go to school. So we would go to school with the Voyager van, and the Voyager van would come pick us up. Now, I lived in Port Stanley and Dorchester afterwards, so a lot of times I'd get picked up there and taken to school in Elmer. But all that ended when I had to go to high school. So when I got to high school, I had to be like a regular student, and I had no help, I had no support, I had nothing. And so I was on my own. And then I was on my own in a big world, because when I was there, I was in downtown London, and you could do whatever you want at lunch. And it was that way in Elmer. I could leave in Elmer. I know this sounds weird, but in Elmer, when we were in Elmer, we had a different sort of way about school. Our school never had a cafeteria. It had like a breakfast club room where you could go get breakfast. They did offer breakfast in the morning for free, and you got like a English muffin. If you're on my Facebook, you'll probably remember, and you went to school with me, you'll remember when we got those English muffins and they put the tomato sauce with the pepperoni and the cheese. and they used to give us that, or cereal or milk and that, like, but they had also canteen where you could get like a hamburger or whatever, hot dog, and we had hot dog days and pizza days and stuff like that. But the whole point I'm trying to get to is we could leave school at lunch and go anywhere we wanted in Elmer alone. I don't know if that still goes on today, but back then we could, and we were trusted to come back at a certain time. Now, when that all changed, when I had to go to high school, that was the same way, but in London, right? So there was a lot of things going on at that time. People were fighting like crazy outside of places by Beale, and it was just really badly rough, right? We were in an economic crisis with the depression, sort of recession depression thing going on in 2000s, and it was just craziness, right? So people were like living hard, and it was rough, right? So, but at the same time, we were renting, and I was still living with my grandmother. Like, I've always lived with my grandmother and my relative, and never left the house. In terms of, but they did when they were young. But I never did. I was, because of my mental health problems and stuff like that, I couldn't do it on my own. And so when I left Clark Road and quit school, I went to Windsor. Now, when I left Clark Road, I kind of left all my friends behind. I had a girlfriend at the time that we separated and stuff like that, and it really hurt me, because like those were all my like did have friends, right? I did have people that were around me, but the way things were in the city, I had to leave because the cost of rent, the way the rent was, the house on Clark Road was going way up, and I just couldn't afford it. And it wasn't because I took off. No, I took off because we couldn't afford it. I had to sell everything. I sold the car that I never could put on the road. I wanted to, but it ended up getting destroyed, and I wanted to take it out to the farm, and that didn't happen, stuff like that. And so we sold everything, and I left. I went to Windsor, and then I ended up getting a vehicle out there, but no license, and so I had like a bunch of these vehicles that were sitting there, and I couldn't drive them. If I would have drove them, Windsor police and all, I would have been in trouble and stuff like that. So I sold everything, and I went up north. When I got up north, I didn't realize where I was going. I bought a house off the internet, so I really didn't know where I was going. I ended up there, and I didn't realize how bad things were, and in terms of the crisis of culture wars between French and Native. And so I know this is a long video, but I'm just explaining to you, when I got up there, and I didn't realize that, holy crap, this is where, the big fight for, when Oka happened and stuff like that, that there was that much problems going on, because the southern people don't understand it. Like, when you say Long Lake, where the hell's that? Where's Long Lake? Where's Long Lake 58? We don't know where that is, right? And so they don't understand the issues that went on up there. Like, there was a war in the woods is really what it was. There was a war in the woods over resource extraction, because our premier thinks it's okay to go up there, whatever premier it is. Dudley George lost his life in the 95, saga of resource extraction too, and the OPP and all that kind of stuff. Now, there was multiple different occasions that these conflicts arrived. Like, we had Rexton in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia and all that, where that was pretty crazy too. But before all that, there was also other things that went on. Like in BC, there was other Gustafson Lake. There was different things that went on, right? And so there was, but they never being talked about. They're not talked about. They're hidden away. Shut up. We don't want to hear it, type thing. Oka was huge. There was protests all across the country, as big as Idle No More, as big as all those things. But it's never talked about. And they always seem to want to talk to the people that don't want to talk about it, or don't know nothing about it and think they do. When marijuana was legalized, it was legalized for rich people. Mark Emery, if you're out there, I know you made a lot of money off of it, like you did, but other people didn't. The people that were the activism, people that were part of that activism, if not just as much as you, or if not more, they didn't make money. So You made a lot of money, but you don't seem to want to talk to the people that were around. Like you, when you were in Vancouver, all you were talking to was all people that were young people, but you weren't talking to the old people that created, legalization for what it is today, right? You know, there's a lot more people out there that you still haven't talked to, right? And it bugs me that, you know, they're being forgotten. Like, there is a lot of people that were around back in the day that fought for all the rights we have today, and they just don't even get listened to, right? One of them is my uncle. You know, he fought for a lot of the rights that we have today too, and so it bugs me that, people don't want to listen, but or they choose to talk to the wrong people. Now, in terms of the Native crisis, um, in America, I really tuned in when they had the protests there over the No DAPL. It was I shouldn't really call it a protest. It was more a battle of rights, right, over their land because they didn't want a pipeline, and so I really tuned into all of that, and to see what happened there reminded me of the conflicts of Oka, Gustafson Lake, and all the crazy tactics our government here used against Native people, right? And so many people are gone. Like there's so many people that are gone off of this earth that fought really hard for rights, and to see what has happened with our government steamrolling over Native rights is ridiculous. Doug Ford doesn't have consent. He doesn't have consent. You don't have consent, Ford. You don't have consent from Native people. You have consent from sellout people that are willing to sell out their morals for a little bit of money. A little bit of money. That's all it is. So for me to see that person from Long Lake standing beside Ford wasn't good. I didn't like it. I feel like you're a traitor to your own people. Your own ancestors. They'd be pissed to find out you did that. You wanted to sell out your morals and the resources just for some money. Bugs me. When I was in Long Lake, I didn't talk to too many people. I kept to myself. Nobody knew who I was until my grandmother showed up. Once my grandmother showed up, my privacy was gone. Everybody in town knew who I was. They knew me and everything about me after my grandmother showed up, because before my grandmother showed up, nobody really knew who I was. So, and I don't have a problem. I don't hide nothing. I cross-dress all the time. I'm that way. I've never been a person that's like conformist in any way, that like strict way of how you should dress. So I've always been a cross-dresser. But there's people that don't even like me because of that. So, but I don't hide nothing. Like I smoke weed. I was never into the hard dope. I've never did cocaine. I've never did any of the hard shit. I steer away from all the pills. I'm not on any pills. I took pills for amoxicillin for my teeth because I went through the operation. I didn't have any sedation or anything like that, just the numbing from the Novocaine. But they gave me amoxicillin to clear up the infection after. But I'm not on any kind of painkillers. My relative's not on any painkillers. We don't do any kind of heavy dope, just cannabis. I don't drink. He doesn't drink. I've never been a drinker. I don't like beer. The taste of beer bugs me. And the effects of it bug me. When I was young, I tried it, didn't like it. And so that's why I'm not really a big pro-beer alcohol person. And I don't like the effects of it. My grandmother used to drink, but I just don't like I used to tell her I don't like it when she drank because it bugged me. I just don't like the taste of it or the effects or being around people that are heavily drunk. I don't feel safe. So that's the reason why about alcohol. I don't like it. And I also don't like drinking and driving, and I think there should be heavier penalties for drunk drivers. I see a lot of people that are getting away with it in our city, and other cities and even America, where they're getting away with drinking and driving. The penalty is too light. People are dying and nobody's held accountable. Uh, there's lots of child abuse that's happening that these people don't go away long enough, or it's not dealt with properly. Um, in our daycares and our school systems, everything. There's a lot of it going on because, like I said, the conservatives like to blame kids. Unfortunately, that's the way they're acting right now. It's all the children's, young generation's fault. Blah blah blah. I don't agree with that at all, but that's the way they're doing it. So sometimes you'll see it even in public where these parents think it's good to hit their kid or they're use physical violence. I've never been about that. If I ever have kids, I don't have kids. But if I ever do, physical discipline, I'm not a fan of. I don't think it works. The jail system, like I said, my dad, he was involved with my mother. What happened with my mother, and I personally don't like the jail system. I think that it doesn't help victims. Like, even my dad was alive today, he would be incarcerated. And I just think that even the person that was with him, what happened with my mom, who did time and all that, is still in there or whatever. I'm not too sure of what happened to him, but that person didn't help me. So the jail time that they did do, it didn't help me. So, and I was a victim of all this stuff. So I was a baby at the time when my mom died, and like I said, I didn't know who she was and stuff like that. And so the people that were involved, that did time, it didn't help me, right? So I was left on welfare, unfortunately, and my elders being told they weren't allowed to go to work because somebody had to be there to babysit. And then dictated to where they could live because it had to be up to children's aid standards and all this kind of stuff. And so yeah, I don't understand why our government's run the way it is, provincially and federally. And so I get mad. I try to stay away from downtown because I get mad because I go down there and I see the same things over and over again. And it pisses me off to see so many people suffering. I said to one lady, she was walking out of TNC store, I said, "This is crazy, there's too many people suffering. Doug Ford's got to go." And she said, "Yeah, no doubt. Like, this is terrible. It's terrible. You see people with blankets all around them, like huddling with blankets and stuff because they're cold. You see people taking over bus shelters and putting tarps up to try to stay warm, but then the police come and harass them and tell them to leave. You see people that have mental health problems scream and talking to themselves or other people that don't even really respond. Like they're talking to somebody and the other person doesn't know what they're talking about. Do you see people in the library and they're just zoned right out because they're so high on painkillers? The Chapman's pharmacy down there just supplies all the painkillers to all the people. And Doug Ford sits there and says it's all safe injection sites that are the problem. And I don't believe that. I think it's a lack of housing. Before, a long time ago, like I was saying, a long time ago, people had housing, so they're hiding away in their houses doing a lot of the drugs, heavy dope, like crack, meth, whatever, heroin, whatever they were doing back in the old days. It was done behind closed doors, in houses and stuff, right? And so now, because of the problem of high rent, people are out in the street doing it, and it's like a open market, open wide market down there, and people are just like a shooting gallery with people doing needles. You walk down the street, you see people poking themselves, right? Or chasing the dragon with their straw and the fucking tinfoil or whatever. And so it's very sad to see, and they're so hooked, right? And these young people, it's not, like I said, they always want to make it like, oh, those hippies, liberal, hippie type people. No, it's not. It's young people. People that are 20, 30 years old. 20, 30, 40 years old. Some of them are even younger than that. There's women down there. There's women down there that get raped. There's women down there that get used for prostitution. There's guys down there getting used for prostitution. There's guys getting raped down there. There's a lot of things going on down there, and they got that soup kitchen, the one that St. Joseph's Hospitality is closed, boarded up. Now they've moved all that services over to Queens Ave to an old church. So the church is now turned into London Cares and a soup kitchen. And it's basically a big shooting gallery for drugs, for to people to get help for food, but it's very unsanitary. I was told they do get chicken. People, I guess the restaurant drops off chicken or something, but they don't. They just let everybody touch it and stuff like that. It's very unsanitary. That's what I was told. But when I went there for a bus ticket, I had to beg for a bus ticket once because my sick relative was in the hospital and I was only on assistance, and I could barely get any help from them. I had to beg for a bus ticket to get to where I had to go see my relative. But there was people that were, talking about cocaine and stuff like that. It was just so, people are so addicted, and I didn't like being down there. Like I said, I'm not a heavy dope user, so me hearing all this stuff and seeing it, and to me, it's just like, wow, what has society come to? It's very bad. I heard Doug one time saying, Doug Ford, him saying, he's never seen anything like it. Okay, but you're the guy that's in charge there, buddy. You were in charge for 7 years. 7 years. And you did absolutely nothing to help people, but watch it all go on and arrest people, incarcerate people, beat people up, whatever your officers were doing. I have no idea, so I don't go down there too much anymore. But I try to stay away because first thing the cops ask you when you're down there is why are you down there, because they have a lot of problems. They have a lot of issues that they're dealing with down there. And there's lots of fires going on, and these buildings are boarded up almost like on purpose to try to see if we could get these people to, if they could get these people to like have fires to keep warm or whatever, and then they can paint the blame onto them as like they had something to do with it or something, because they have a hate on for homeless people so bad they would like to see them all locked up and put away. And so they're creating these narratives or these situations. Like they'll board up a whole building, put a bunch of cameras on it, watch it go up in flames, and then pin the blame and try to record somebody or whatever. To try to fabricate a story to try to get the person put away, so they could get insurance, and then it works out in their favor. It just sickening mentality that's going. And all the stores down there, they would not be able to stay in business if it wasn't for all those people that were bringing their welfare checks down there to go shopping at their corner stores, variety stores, whatever. They're surviving off of that. And if they took all that away, I don't know how well they would do, because a lot of people go shopping online anymore. They don't go to those stores. So like there's nothing down there to go down there for. There's no arcade. There's no fun. The quality office has been boarded up and shut down and abandoned pretty much. So there's no live music. There's nothing going on. So what the hell? And the McDonald's is gone, pulled out, and so that whole building is empty. Like I remember the days where the welfare office was in the market building that's down there, the big building, not Galleria Mall, the big tower building down there. And so like that's how far I remember back. I remember when we were in Elmer, and I remember the courthouse being the place that you'd have to go to get any help. Like that's how far back I remember, and but like there's certain things I forget, but the help I know has always been not there. Like there's always been homeless people in London for years. Like I remember the 2000s, early 2000s, people homeless. Like I've been homeless a few times. Like I lived in trailers and motels, and like I can't even explain to you all the crazy places and situations that I've been in myself, let alone all the craziness that other people go through. But there's always I've been making this video because I wanted to say, like, there's also always somebody with a worse story. Like I said to the counselor too, there's always somebody that has a worse story than you. Like you could tell, I could tell my story, and it's pretty bad. My mom got murdered, and it was really bad, and left all her kids with nothing. And the dad doesn't come around anymore, like her dad, and my dad is totally gone, and you know, and all that. But there's also stories that you hear about other people that came from countries that were bombed and stuff like that, and so like they always, their story always, usually is way worse than mine, right? So I always look at the good things in life, but when I try to see the good things, I see a lot of bad things too. Like, you know, even right now, I hope that Ontario makes the right decision and removes Doug Ford, because if not, like, it's gonna get worse. Like, to me, we already had 7 years of Doug Ford. I don't know how much more Ontario could take, you know. And last time I went to go vote, people were out shopping. They weren't voting. They were shopping. And it's like, why weren't you voting? Oh, nothing changes. Who cares? Who cares? Like, they don't care. And it's like, what do you mean you don't care? You should be caring, because this affects you, man. Your health care, this health care is important. There's people over in other countries that don't have this health care. So if you don't vote, then our health care is not going to get any better. And it's going to stay the same under Doug Ford. Like, why would you want 7 years of the same? We just seen 7 years of it. You just seen 7 years. What the outcome? Have a look around. Does it look good to you? Does it look good that the downtown's failing? That people are homeless, living under bridges, and people have to beg for food. Our transit costs is ridiculous. You can't even get no help. Does that look good to you? That's 7 years of that is good? I don't know. To me, it's not. I look at that and 7 years, and this guy did nothing but made things worse than what they already were. So this will be my third time voting or whatever. I think third time or whatever since I've been able to vote. I voted against Doug Ford the first time, and then before that I voted for Wynne. So, and I voted against him this time. So, I voted against him because I don't think it's good to carry on 7 years after, and we're gonna carry on this. Have a look around, man. It's not nice, And also, I lost my brother, so of course I'm not gonna re-elect somebody that did nothing to help my brother, And all he was asking was for a little bit of help. So, make the right decision, Ontario. Hopefully you get out and vote. Make the right decision. To me, carrying on 7 years of a guy that doesn't do anything but make things worse is pointless. Hopefully we can restore our services and restore what he's destroyed, because he really has. If you look around, he's destroyed so much. Our downtown is so bad, and people don't have housing. People are suffering. They're freezing. I'm only one person. I can only do so much. I only have one voice. But after seeing what happened, like I said, with my brother, the experience with health care in the city, up north health care, stuff like that, after seeing all of it for myself, I'm not going to carry on 7 years of the Doug Ford government. But anyway, thanks for watching this video. Please get out to vote and go and vote tomorrow. Thanks, Ontario. Love you guys.